Welcome to the CG Pro podcast. This is episode number 38 with Ryan Zingler. Ryan from Crystal Dynamics. He's a senior technical director there. It's a pleasure to welcome
Ryan. Sorry,
senior technical designer. My first mistake. Senior technical designer from Crystal Dynamics. I will introduce Ryan in a second, this is our episode 38. If you enjoy what you hear tonight, you can follow us at becomecgpro.com and follow us in our Facebook group. So I'll leave the bulk of the introduction to Ryan, but Ryan is a great 3D artist in the games industry. As I said already, works at Crystal Dynamics as a senior technical designer. He's been in the industry since 2010 and worked on all sorts of cool games like Fallout, New Vegas, and Tomb Raider Reboot series. So I will end it there because Ryan's going to do a much better job at talking about what he has done in his life. But Ryan, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm a pleasure to be here.
Well, I always like starting this off just asking a little bit about how you got into the industry, a little bit of maybe some early inspirations, how you were there some things that inspired you in your early life to want to kind of choose this path of 3D and gaming?
Yeah. Well, like all great stories of how people start their lives out and get going. Some do start out somewhat either awkward or unfortunate for some people, but things like that, life events shape us who we are. So mine was particular where originally I actually was in the study of architectural engineering and mechanical engineering. And then there was a class that we were wrapping up and going into blueprinting, and there was an accident that happened where basically I lost a finger. And when you have to go through these classes like blueprinting and stuff like that, penmanship and everything like that is so critical. And it was kind of a letdown for me because I couldn't do it as much anymore. So for me, it went to a very brief period that was, I don't want to say dark, but there wasn't a great moment that I could win my successes. And then one day I just picked up an Xbox 360 and I started playing, again, a little secluded. I didn't want to talk to many people at that moment, processing, mental health and whatnot and finger appendages.
Yeah.
And then it went into me really looking at the games more and more as I was playing them. And I just kept on playing and playing and playing. Then I started saying, wait a minute, can I apply what I've learned already in school, but in a digital realm? Maybe I don't need to blueprint and draft and all the other assortments with architectural engineering. Maybe I can apply it digitally. So then I immediately went into it's go time. And at that point I was 20. I was 20. And I went into and started doing research on game development. And then all of a sudden I saw a school that at the time seemed to hit all the notes that I wanted to get into, to study, to understand, as well as numerous hours in Reddit and just Google searches, things like that. And then I went into a school, Art Institute at the time, and studied game design and art and started picking up things more and more. And then there was a way more spark that ignited internally a little bit where I said, wait a minute, there's got to be more information out there because the teachers are great. They offer great knowledge and what they've had experiences in the industry. And I started digging more and I started finding out where do you guys hang out? Where do you go collaborate? Where do you go to just relax when it's after hours? And then I found this old, through a series of friends, there was a place called the All Dubliner. It was a bar actually that all these devs in Southern California hung out. I was like, there's my ticket. That's how I'm going to get more information on what to do. Schooling was great. I was learning so much already and things I didn't know because, I just studied areas like in art. I'm not an artist, by the way. But I had to study a lot of other aspects of just art and design. Had some great teachers there that really helped me all along the way. Ben being one of them actually, and kind of guiding me, saying, yeah, if you go hang out with these people at that bar event, I called it, you might be able to get some more knowledge. And then that turned into also other students, and we all collaborated both once in a while at a hangout spot or at school again, because I went into them at the hangout spot. And then we started talking more and more, and it eventually evolved into me researching into free open source engines.
Mm.
At the time, Fallout 3 had its open source engine out there, and I started dabbling with it. And then I found out you can mod, and then I found this thing called modding communities, and I was like, modding communities? What? What? Okay. So I started getting on these forums on the modding community. Fallout Nexus forum was the one I was on a long time ago now. Started learning more about this particular engine. And then as Ben once in a while would lean over and say, what you guys doing? And I was also with another teacher at the time who was also intrigued on just this side project. It turned into a mod, essentially. And then things diverted from one mod to another mod to another mod. And eventually I made one briefly called Alice in Wasteland. It was a little storytelling I did. I set up a lot of the scripts and things like that to get the NPCs spawning. And basically the story of Alice in Wonderland, but in a vault. And a little darker. I got picked up from there. Then from a friend of a friend of a friend who said, "Hey, this company Obsidian Entertainment is actually possibly doing an internship program." I was like, "Oh, cool, okay." Still doing diligent school, learning things that I need to learn still. And then I went into an internship program and started working on Fallout New Vegas as an intern. And then several months later, it turned into a job. And so now here I am panicking a little bit in the sense of like, how am I going to maintain my current job, my industry job now, and still finish college for the thing I was going to study in? And then it turned into just a lot of self-discipline with my own scheduling and things like that. And I went into a very strict regimen of what I was going to be doing. The amount I even micromanaged my sleep hours to a point.
Wow. Did you experiment with like polyphasic sleeping or anything like that?
Power naps were key. I will say power naps were very key for me. Not advice for anybody doing that kind of thing, but it led into that. And then I remember talking to Ben, actually before I took the internship, I'm saying, "Ben, is this a good idea?" And he's like, yeah. Actually, he was the man who pushed me in that direction. Yeah, do it. Because I didn't know much about internships or let alone that many game companies. Prior to that, I was just a regular gamer that just picked up the game. I didn't focus on studios and who built it necessarily. So I was fairly new in that area at that time. And then it turned into the job, like I said. And then after the job, there was a point where I was like graduating, and I basically went to our showing when the students got to show their work out to the world. And sometimes developers would come out and visit these showings. And here I am now going, okay, well, and by the way, unfortunately at that time, Obsidian we did part ways. It was they were a great company. Just, I guess at the time there was more knowledge to be gained, and that was okay. Because at the time I was also in the mindset of I had to finish college too. So it was very back and forth a lot at that time. But then 2 weeks later, I get a call from a company called Crystal Dynamics, and I remember the recruiter at the time said, "Hey, this is Crystal Dynamics," and I said to him, "Sorry, I'm not interested in any credit cards." and then he said, "No, we're the people working on Tomb Raider." I'm like, "Oh, beep," and then I was like, "Okay,
I'll take all your credit cards." Yeah.
I'm so sorry. He's like, "It's okay." And then it turned into, "Hey, we want to offer you an interview." It turned immediately into, "Hey, we want to offer you a job." And now I'm correcting my timeline here. Now I went to that showing, graduating college at the time, and I had to turn away a few people saying, "I'm sorry, I'm actually technically hired."
Oh.
And then literally a week later, I packed up my stuff and moved up to the Bay Area. And then from that point, I've been at Crystal since, working on Tomb Raider 2013, the reboot, to Rise of the Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And then worked on Avengers, and then now working on Perfect Dark.
Amazing. That must have been so cool to have that coming out of college, because I know that's a daunting moment for most people. Like, what am I going to do next?
Yeah, it was indirectly. It was, like I said, it was the whole not necessarily. I was taking a lot of interest in a lot of things and trying to culminate all this information, but without me even realizing it, I was also teaching myself how to use the current standard game engine for a company. And I was just picking it up, and I kind of just it kind of fell into my lap at that point in the sense of like, because I was already knowing everything they were doing, all the tools they're using, so it was an easy transition.
Like, what was that like getting into the company? Did they give you a lot of training and some time to adjust, or are you kind of in at the deep end? What was that first step like?
With the first company or current, or what do you want to?
Yeah, I guess the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, my first impression though when I first got in there was, holy crud, everybody is diehard dedicated to what they're doing. It was a very focused mindset. You could hear the hum in the room, the buzzing of the coffee pot kind of sizzling a little bit in the background. You know, everybody's just in this keen awareness of they're all in the same goal. And they welcomed me with open arms and they said, "Hey, let's get you set up." They had nice introductions of how to use the tools currently, and they said, "Do you know this and this and this?" And yeah, I knew how to use the engine fairly well. And they're like, "Cool." And then they were open to teaching newer things, things that they're doing specific for their game, and that was kind of really cool to get that mentorship kind of thing. I had several people who kind of took the time to help teach me up a little bit more. It's I do remember three: Josh Sawyer, Akil Hooper, Hopper Hooper. I apologize if I made that incorrect. And Charles Staples. They were some early mentors, I would say, that helped me learn more and more as I was going. So yeah.
What how well did school prepare you for jumping into the industry? Do you feel like it had given you everything you needed, or was that kind of the beginning when you got into the internship?
So the internship came later in the school, but I would say the school definitely did help me in the sense of, I mean, the one number one thing that's the most valuable tool is always communication, how to talk to different people in different disciplines and things like that. And the school alone culminated that because it forced everybody in a classroom. We're all learning the same thing together, but you knew the people took their interests. Like, oh, I want to be an engineer, or I want to be an artist, or an animator, or a sound effects, or so on and so forth. But because we all were in the same classrooms, we did culminate together and develop these ideas. Or if we had class projects that we had to work on teams, it kind of preemptively prepped me in that way of like, now you're going to be working with larger teams of the same disciplines. And it definitely helped within the cross communication, the networking. Like, sometimes you have to go outside of the group and find other people to help out, at least in school projects, of course. That can also be translated in like studio culture too. Like, you might have multiple studios within a company that you have to either connect with via Zoom, right? Zoom calls, team calls. So now you have to work further distances if it's a larger company, and having that way to be able to communicate that, I would say, was one very key thing that the school did teach and prep me for.
Right, interesting. Interesting that that's the first thing you mentioned is the communication, even more than like obviously they were teaching you skills that were useful in you being able to create things in and design and building and modeling and things like that. I'm sure, but the communications of was that the most important thing you felt like came through?
I felt it helped the most initially, and yes, the classes did help provide structure for more like the philosophy of design, the aspects of certain softwares that are current, like Maya and Max at the time. They definitely teach you to have those skill sets to use tools, yes, and also how to organize a project and how to time manage yourself and the best you can. And a lot of my classes were focused around stuff like that, which was really good and helpful also. But yeah, the communication was the number one key because you can't get something done as a team if you're not talking to each other.
Mm,
And that has to be the first thing that happens is everybody's got to talk.
right. How was that changed going through COVID and going through everybody? Are you guys all remote now? Are you
There's a
gone
there's a
back to?
mix. I mean, it's a mix right now. We have currently right now, yeah, we're in three locations. So I was originally in California. I moved out to the Austin studio.
Mm,
There's a Washington studio. Someone said Beer Wednesday.
yeah.
Sorry, that's all the comment. Um, Yeah, and so when COVID hit, it definitely was a big adjustment period. There's a lot of people that are, extroverts. They want to like talk to everybody and get all collaborative and you know plan out ideas in a conference room with a giant whiteboard and eraser markers, and just you're just going to town talking through ideas. And now we had to do this all remote, and some people work better that way. Though I mean, some people can say, you know what, I will keep the line of communication open, but I can also truly focus more. Some people
Mm.
work better that way too. So there was a period of just adjustment. Everybody kind of learning to navigate around this new realm of how we got to stay in touch and communicate and coordinate projects. And yeah,
Interesting. Is it? Are you remote now, or are you like
I'm in an
in the
office right
studio? Okay.
now. I personally couldn't do remote because for me, home has more distractions.
Yeah,
uh,
I resonate with that a lot. Yeah.
yeah, two dogs running around all the time. It's well, luckily they're out of here, which is great. Um, but for me, when I'm in work mode, it definitely is a whole kind of checking myself at the door in sense of going, now it's work mode. Um, and it's a way for me to also keep work at work and home at home. It's good to have separation once in a while,
Yeah.
both for mental health and things like that. So it's good to keep that separation also. So when I'm at work, I know I'm at work, and when I'm at home, I'm at home. And that was just my reason. Like me, I couldn't blend the two. I mean, me and my wife are in a small house, so this is my office, but I had four monitors right here, and it was quite cumbersome. So it felt good getting that back to the studio. But yeah, it's a mix right now, and there's each one. I don't remember the numbers on top of my head, but yeah, I mean, I hope that answers that question. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm curious about the internship thing as well. Is that something that's still really common in the games industry for people to come up through internships? What's the kind of typical route that people come through? And does that include internships still?
Um, Currently, I'm not familiar in the sense of if they're still very relevant and valid. I hear talks of some studios doing an internship program. I don't know person on hand right now. Um, I don't know if Obsidian still does those too. So I'm not sure per se who's doing them. I can't say they're not being done. Um, they're valuable, yes, because it gives you the preemptive sense of like what is current, company culture, the current softwares they're using. Like when I left Art Institute, I was thinking, okay, 3ds Max and Maya, totally current, and then everybody's like, no, it's all Maya. I'm like, wait, what? What? Okay. So going in an internship, I felt like it taught a lot of that. Like I said, the current software is the company culture. Company culture is very big because you need to be able to work together. I mean, that's how an idea is ultimately formed and a game is developed is team collaboration, team working together and coming together with the same idea, the same vision, the same goal, same dream. I mean,
Yeah. So it seems like you think that they are a good idea, though. Do you think that they should be? Do you guys have one in Crystal Dynamics?
I don't currently believe we do. I would not be the person to ask that. I would always say
Yeah,
email our HR. I don't
sure.
know currently, so I haven't seen that, but I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Um, what what would you say was the biggest surprise that you had getting into the games industry? What was the thing that kind of surprised you the most about that you may have had some expectation that get completely shattered as you got into the industry for real?
Well, I would start out by saying I originally thought it was like the movie Grandma's Boy. um, Everybody's partying all the time. Everybody's having a blast. Getting into it, I think I said this earlier a little bit, but it was the dedication that I saw in everybody. They still had fun. Don't get me wrong. Everybody has fun. I mean, we're making video games. I mean,
Yeah,
it has to be fun, or else you're not giving it your best and you're all in your true self. If you're doing it just for a job, you have to have the passion and love for it. Um, you're also changing people's lives on a daily basis. Anybody who wants to escape from reality a little bit and play a game just to get that bit of relaxation, you're kind of helping them, and also in a very big way. So to see when I walked in that studio, I saw the dedication, everybody just, I call it the buzz of the room, the hum of the room. Everything is just
Mm.
in synchrony. That was kind of like I wouldn't say shocker, but I was like, wow. I was in astonishment, just the level that people are at, and it was really more inspirational than what I heard of in like stories and stuff like that from what I read.
Right. Can you explain a little bit of maybe like what's an average day for you, or what are the things that you do as I know that it's somewhat of a new role, senior technical designer, but as you said, compared to legacy roles in the industry. But can you explain a little bit about what it is that you do?
Okay, well, currently, yeah, I'm a technical designer that, from what I understood, from what was explained to me, it was a fairly newish role in the grand scheme of the life of the game industry. Originally started as a level designer. Going into level design, I really enjoyed the philosophy, the psychology of trying to get a person from point A to point B without pointing an arrow, and there very much was that level that my architectural side adapted to initially, and I loved doing level design work. And then I started developing just like think of like compartmentalized items that people could rinse and reuse, a procedural kind of thing. No, that's not procedural. Sorry. Just tools and things that would help other designers to make their lives a lot easier. And I started working with at Crystal, our engine, and trying to help things and people so they didn't have to completely redo something from scratch. Um, I think one example was on a previous tumor game. I worked with an engineer, and we worked together to work on a system called the Hunt Manager system, and that system essentially helped populate the worlds with life, birds, deer, rabbits, all these creatures in the first Tomb Raider, the second, and even the third. And I mean the 2013 being the first. Sorry, it's technically not the first.
Yeah.
And that system then allowed designers to not have to constantly in a new area script something out to spawn animals, and this thing would handle it for them. And then at that point, I started doing more things like just making more tools and objects to help designers so they didn't have to constantly redo something from scratch and they could focus on the experience. And then when I started work on the Avengers, I went into more of a role of developing items and objects and things to make the designers' lives easier. And then it came to a designer that got hired midway through the project, and he kind of said to me, he's like, that's kind of what a technical designer is. You like building the tools, you like building the objects and things like that to help designers out, and you're not necessarily focused on that one level anymore. Some level designers, when they work in a level from the beginning to end, it's like it's their poster child kind of thing. It's like that is my golden ticket. That's my thing I worked on. And I'm not saying all level designers that way. No, everybody takes pride in what they work, but I got more pride from helping out the entire team and developing things to help the entire project as a whole. And then this person started helping me more and more out of understanding what it means to be a technical designer. And that for me was kind of like I already had good rapport with the engineers. So if a designer needs something, I could be the middle ground, the translator, the whatever you want to say, and work with engineering and level design together and be that bridge between the two and help them develop that extra thing and say, okay, there you go. And then me and engineer go, yay. Well,
Cool.
designer goes, yay. And yeah, it turned into that role. I've been in that role for about 3 years now. 3 years, yeah. So
So what kinds of tools are you using? Are you coding? Are you using things like Maya? Are you
I can't necessarily speak on the tools we're using. I could say that there is a level of coding, yes, that is done. There's a level similar to like a visual scripting language. There are 3D softwares that we do use and are familiar with. That I've used not as much lately, to be honest, but and yeah, we we have a in-house proprietary engine. We also have another engine outside that's been pretty much communicated to the world. So I'm not going to speak on it. I'm just going to say I'm pretty sure it's advertised out there.
Google it,
I'm
people.
covering all my bases. But yeah. So I could say that Maya, I think, is still predominantly the 3D modeling program. Depending on the engine, it might be a proprietary engine, it might be a source engine, or an open source engine, like Fallout's was, like Unreal, things like that. So does that answer the question? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's just it's interesting. So a lot of people who listen to this, I think, span people who are both in the industry, but also want to get into the industry. So it's interesting thing for people to hear about what, not only what you use, but also how. I guess another question maybe, because you've been in the industry for a little while now, would you have any advice for what people can do to prepare? What could people learn? What should people be good at if they wanted to pursue, let's say, your role that you're in currently, maybe a junior version of that?
So currently, right now, I would say I touched on this earlier. Communication will be key. Working on that will help anybody who may not be strong in that area. I initially wasn't. Still learning more techniques every day to get better about it. Always keep up to date, in the sense of like, what are the current games in the market right now? What are the current trends? That'll definitely help initially know what you are seeing people want more, and also, I mean, what's popular, but also you can also apply yourself to what is it you also want to work on. Maybe it fits in that realm of what the current trend is.
So skills wise, it'd be fair to say it sounds like you code and you use DCCs. Yeah. So if you were to learn C++ and Maya and Unreal Engine, sorry, I blurted it out. You don't have to confirm or deny that.
So I would say that understanding like a base level in engineering and coding, more like coding architecture structure, would be good to learn, because even if you don't want to be an engineer, it'd be great for you to be able to communicate to an engineer, because you're going to be relying on engineers also in development of a lot of the stuff you're working on, whether it be an open source engine or an in-house proprietary engine. They might need to help you develop and build something that will help you. Visual scripting, yeah, it's definitely a great one to learn, or even other forms of scripting in general, if you want to go into more of a design realm. A lot of open source engines out there are also free to use to learn. So, I mean, like Unreal is a very, very widely used engine. You can Google search anything almost on it. The help is out there with it, and that makes that engine phenomenal. It was the same for me when I was using they called it GEC, the engine that Fallout was built on. I dabbled in Unity for a brief moment too. That's really good to learn. Unity is growing too. It's pretty cool how big Unity's gotten in the last 10 years. So
yeah, it's interesting.
But yeah, I would say like programming terminology was a big area that I believe would help a lot of people. I mean, I know artists that also have to talk to engineers sometimes if they need something specific to work with, like a shader or a material or effects of a material. I mean, so that would be like the first thing I'd say to definitely learn. After that, get a hold of those engines and start dabbling with some engines, and then you can get a premise of how a lot of engines operate. And look at the common 3D software programs if you're going in the art field too, like Maya and Max. And
yeah, it's interesting point in history. I know that there's a lot of games companies have had proprietary engines. Some of them are moving towards a Unity or an Unreal Engine. I did Google in the background, so yeah, I kind of know what you're saying about Crystal Dynamics. maybe using a common game engine. Anybody else can do that. It seems like it's the one I just mentioned, but I want to ask you to confirm or deny it. And it's free. It's free to download. I'm curious, outside of you saying anything that you're doing at your studio, what your thoughts are on some of those engines. I personally have used Unity and Unreal mainly. I also used Godot a little bit as well, weirdly, at one job. I know that's not widely used at all, but something that's very open source, entirely open source.
Um,
I'm sure nobody's using Godot in
I haven't heard of
Crystal.
that one actually.
Godot?
Yeah, Godot. Is that what you call it? Yeah, I don't think.
It's been around for a little while. It was, I think, originally part of Blender, and then it broke off to be, I think it was the game engine that was in Blender, and then it broke off, and now Blender's got its own kind of real-time engine that's not a game engine. But yeah, we experimented with it. We ended up using Unreal Engine in the end because there was vastly more functionality in it than there was.
There's a lot you can do with Unreal, that's for sure. It's a very, at least I find it to be a very user friendly. I mean, you can look up anything almost in the sense of obtaining help and how to build something, and it's pretty impressive that it has that large of a both fan base and user base. So very impressive, actually.
There's something they've been really strong on is community and innovation. Those two things, I think, have driven it to be an amazingly widely adopted engine. There's also Unity is great as well. I've enjoyed both for the last 10 years or so. And some other engines going back a bit further before that. I'm mainly from film though, so I'm mostly looking at it from that angle. We use Unity on Lion King and Jungle Book and some of those movies.
It's been definitely a while since I've touched Unity. I would say, actually 12 years, 11 years, 12 years. Prior to that though, the as they call it, the GAC engine of Fallout, that was my first go-to, and that was also awesome. How obtainable information was to do stuff on the forums and modding communities. Unreal is great. It's very user friendly. Still learning a lot about other current engines too out there, but yeah, I mean,
did you study computer? You mentioned basically being good at computer science fundamentals and programming and architecture, and being able to do that and communicate it with engineers being really important. Did you learn that in our institute, or is that something which you learned on the job, or did you have to teach yourself? What was your personal journey with that?
I would say like the school provided the structure initially, and then it also took my own due diligence of doing my own research and finding out what was like more current of how things are done on a day by day basis, and for that, I mean,
oh yeah, no worries. Just with computer science fundamentals and programming, which you said is really really important for your role. I was curious if you'd got the bulk of that at college, or if that's something which you'd learned more after the fact.
I would say it was like a 50-50 kind of. Like I learned a lot of good up-to-date stuff when I was in college, and then because it's a constantly fast-moving industry, it's constantly changing too. So then, because of what I learned at school, taught me outside to then keep researching what's current and what's up to date on all the software. And I even took outside of after I graduated, I took a couple classes in engineering just to learn that terminology. Like data structures, what structs are, variables, properties, functions, classes. I mean, I learned that stuff on the side, even though I wasn't going to be an engineer, but I knew it was going to be, from what I gathered in research, very important to be able to communicate to engineers. And then Art Institute taught me a lot of the art fields. I enjoy art on the side also, and it helped me to at least be able to communicate with an artist and work with an artist all the time. And then aside from keeping up with visual language and any other software out there that would help me keep up to date like that with the how engines operate and how they work and how they are geared towards development and ways to use them. Once you learn generally like one, or I would say even learn like one open source engine too, for me, helped me learn or give me or teach me the ability to how to learn the other engines going forward. So I would say that was also very key, is if you can learn one engine like Unity or Unreal, it tends to make it easier. Now engines operate differently in a larger extent, but at least in the immediate, if you can teach yourself how to use one, it can help you learn others. So, and that's
core
what I tell a lot
principles are
of
the
times too.
same. The core principles are the same though between them. They all deal in the same types of thing.
Like we had a proprietary engine in house, and we transitioned to a different engine, and because of what I learned initially on that engine, it helped me adapt to the transition. And initially, I was worried about that. I was like, "Oh my goodness, that's going to be." For me, it was the first time it happened in my professional field, and for me, I was like, "Oh, okay, we'll see how this goes." And it didn't go as bad as I thought it would. It actually went fairly smoothly because of what I learned initially, and because I hang on to that initial knowledge that I obtained from school, from both working with artists, working with design, working with engineers. And then it gave me the ability at the job also to, and that's another big thing, is because it's constantly evolving, you're always constantly up to date. A lot of people help each other also internally. So I'm in constant communication with both artists and designers all the time, just because I want to stay also current, and they help me in those areas. Like it can be even a simple conversation, right? Like my buddy that I play games with a lot, we'll play a game on the weekends or at lunch, and we do it to both because we have interests in games together that we love and enjoy together, and also helps us stay current. It's okay. Okay? This one's getting a lot of reviews right now, but
makes sense. It's research and fun at the same time.
It's research and fun. Strict schedule, of course. There's a lot of tearing apart kind of thing. You some games, I would say like 50% of the games I play, I tear apart internally and going, why did they do it this way? What did they do right here? So
is there anything that you think that somebody could have taught you in school that would have helped prepare you more to jump into the industry?
Yeah, I would say initially just more base engineering terminologies and structure, and more, I'd say. I mean, I forced myself to learn as much as I could early on, but I wish that was pushed more heavily upon. Even if you're an artist, it's good to at least understand that, because then it helps you understand how engines operate more.
Right.
There's surprisingly, our artists don't just stay in the modeling programs. They go on an engine, and are utilizing the engine just as much, and they'll have questions like, "Hey, how do I do this and this and this?" And having that knowledge, forcing myself to understand and work with engineering and artists together, and I also thoroughly enjoy doing that too. That's the fun for me, is the collaboration. It helps me. It helps me be able to help other people set themselves up for success too.
We have a question from the audience. So somebody's asking, have you ever been tempted to leave the security of the largest studio for the creative freedom of an indie game studio?
That's an interesting point. I would say that I don't view, me personally, I don't view as a large or small studio. I gravitate towards what is in line with what I want to do and create and provide for other people in the world. And for me, being accepted in Crystal Dynamics and also understanding how they operate and work, they only truly believe in providing great games for people out there in the world, and they truly believe that to their core. Everybody at the Crystal Dynamics, I mean, we all just want to make awesome, and we want to change people's lives because I show them the experience, show them what we believe in games, and share that with them. And so, have I been tempted? No. There's all great opportunities out there. So whether big or small, it should align with what you want to do and what you believe in. So, I mean, there's a lot of great studios out there. Crystal so far has, in my eyes, been the best for me. And I keep waking myself up every day in the sense of like, gonna go make awesome. Let's go make some video games. And
cool.
Yeah,
it's great to love what you do, for sure. You only get one life after all. You should do something that you love.
Absolutely.
So, talking, there's a few things I'd love to know to sort of help younger people who want to break into the industry. What what are some good things that people could ask during the application process or during an interview to a company they might want to work for?
Ask about the project with showing interest and not sound like someone who's just a fan. That's a good advice, I would say. Um, it's good to ask what the current state of the project is if they're able to disclose that information to you. Um, what's like a good day-to-day explanation, because you are going to be working with these people 5 days a week, um, for X amount of weeks in a year, for X amount of years, if it keeps going further and further. I mean, so you kind of want to get that vibe of like how the studio is operating, like within the studio, which it'll show you the company's, it'll show you their structure, their organization, what it's like, um, and you basically want to show them that you've done your research too. You want to show them that, like, um, and that you're engaged with them. So that's some points I wish someone told me long ago. I mean, I've been helped in some areas, but I mean, I wish I could tell my, you kind of look at yourself sometimes like, man, if I could go back 10, 20 years ago and tell you this information now. So those are some things I would definitely like bring to like an interview and stuff like that.
Is there, and conversely, anything that you shouldn't do during an interview? Or ask, or I don't know. I can think of hundreds of things you shouldn't do in a job interview.
there's many things. Well, I mean, you want to be presentable. I mean, but
right. Wear clothes.
Yeah. You want to engage in the conversation. You want to ask questions. It can be like the size of the team, sorry. So yeah, you got to be presentable and don't not engage. Engage in every conversation. That's what I was trying to say earlier. You can ask what not to do.
You said you mentioned not being too much of a fan. That was an interesting one. I know that some game studios have gone through cycles of only hiring rabid fans and then realizing that's not entirely the best idea. And like, so big, I guess, that being a part of it, being enthusiastic, but not
enthusiastic for sure. Like, love what you want to work on. Absolutely. Show your dedication in that. Like I loved Tomb Raider when I worked on it, and I absolutely was a fan. I mean, but I know my research, and at the time I did my research on that game, and I knew what it took. I heard stories of previous developments of Tomb Raiders in the past. I knew a lot. I started studying the backstory of the characters a lot, or the character being Lara Croft, and it helped me understand more. So at least I should rephrase that, not necessarily don't be a fan, but don't be only a fan. Know that you want to show interest and change the course and give more of that experience out there of that thing that you do love. Like I loved working on Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider was a great franchise. Lara Croft was a great character, and I loved developing her story more or helping contribute to that. Like for me, I was contributing to growing that, and that's what you should do, is show that. Like you gotta take interest in their company as a whole. So don't do your research. Do your research on the company also. Like, you want to know what they're about. So if don't skip on days of like of that, of doing your own research and understanding what games they developed and things like that. I've heard some people before in the past who didn't do the research on the studios, and yeah, they didn't necessarily like play all the games that studio made, but I mean, it would be good to know the games that they have worked on. So, and also good to play the games that they've worked on, understand how they're built. So, that'd be one thing I would say, like, don't not do your research, do your research.
Any tips on doing the research? So looking at the company's website, I'm sure, like playing the games, and any ways that you can kind of, when I was trying to break into film, I tried to get where people who worked in big film studios were, so that I could hang out with them and ask them all the same types of questions, but in that industry. Is there a equivalent in the games industry? It seems like it's a hard industry to crack, but
I mean, it is a small but big industry, small but big kind of, and it's growing every day. Networking is very key. Yes. So the key events to pay attention to are like Game Developers Conference, E3s, and that gives you a sense of the current environment of the games and people that they're gravitating towards. So Game Award shows I pay attention to every time they come on. Twitch is a big thing to get involved with, see what's being live streamed a lot. If you can't play a game or if it's just not your jam, sometimes I do something once in a while. Like I don't play every game out there, but I will watch full playthroughs of games actively, just because it's also a way for me to be current update what other games are doing, other systems they've built for their games. I think the one, well, currently I'm playing God of War 3, Ragnarok, or sorry, not God of War 3, God of War Ragnarok, great game. At the same time, I'm constantly like watching live feed of Tunic. Tunic the game. I watched a full playthrough of that. That's a great game too. I have played that one actually. So that's like a form of like research and things like that you can do, and then you can generally find out like, oh, I really like that game, and find out what studio made that game, and then you can maybe see if they show up at GDC events, E3 events. Once in a while, network a little bit more, try to see if you can find out more potential employees that are willing to talk. Also, LinkedIn is a source tool that you can use to find out, of course, with, hey, how's it going? My name is such and such. I get asked questions on LinkedIn a lot, actually. I can't answer everything in terms of like exactly how, but always stay active. And events like GDC are a very big event. It was very big for me, at least early in my career, to constantly get up to date of who is doing what now.
Any advice on like how somebody could approach somebody like you on LinkedIn if someone's coming in cold, you don't know who they are, they clearly want some help or they want some guidance or something? Any advice on how to go about that? Especially online, because it's one thing to go up to a person in real life who they can't get away from you, but it's very easy to get away from somebody online. So any ways to like, help get the engagement? I know I get asked a lot of questions online too, and I guess the distinction for me is if somebody's asked me something that's nice and easy for me to solve as a clearly defined question that's not going to take me hours to answer, or they're not crazy or too crazy. Any tips on that?
A lot of companies more that I've seen are doing like community reach out kind of stuff going on all the time, and they post that on their websites too. And they try to answer questions too as often as they can. A lot of studios run events during big things like GDC or E3 where you can meet with developers and things like that, and you can ask more direct questions in regards to what they're doing and what got them into it. Crystal did for a while like a I don't want to say job fair. I forgot actually the name of it. I apologize. But we would come in and talk to some people, interact, and also sometimes they bring their stuff to show us, and that was pretty cool. We've actually hired a few people from those events too. So if companies out there offer like kind of like meetup invite events, attend. I mean, 100%. That's one way up. Other than that, a lot of popular studios. If you find a game that you gravitate towards and you play in a lot, and you find out what studio worked on, look them up on LinkedIn. Sometimes some people are open with communicating, talking out to fandom or the community actually if they can. I can't speak on everybody or even myself of community talking, but there are companies that offer those services in the sense of like, hey, we have a community site, email us, ask us questions.
Right.
I would say look into those. I mean, for sure. Pay attention to every event that comes out. If you can go to it, especially if developers are going to be there.
Very cool. You are being very kind in coming to our next games training as well and doing a guest speak in that event, in that training. I'd love to hear just a sound bite, if you like, of what you might be covering when you come and join us, or what you might talk about, what you might share.
more. I guess in more depth of things that I try to use as best practices to focus on to help my day-to-day job. Things I'm constantly researching. I still actually dabble into architectural design a lot of the times because it also was just an original passion of mine, but it helps me focus and think of an idea and design it out. So I can talk about, and I want to, more of that focus of tools and techniques to help get your mind in the right direction of what you're trying to both solve, figure out, and then develop and build. So there's books and techniques. Actually, I have a few suggestions down the road I can bring out later on, and things like that that would be nice to talk about more in detail. For sure.
Cool. So some of the things that you've already mentioned, by the sounds of it, some technical things, some more on the side of soft skills, some things that you would have loved to have known before you got into the industry that would have helped.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. I'm definitely looking forward to that myself. What games are you playing at the moment? You mentioned a couple already. What are your favorite games at the moment?
God of War Ragnarok. I powered through God of War 3 again. Oh, not God of War 3. I don't know why I keep on saying that. Jesus. Sorry, guys. I have friends that worked on that project. And
so they forgive you.
Still...
I'm sure they forgive you.
I hope they do, because I'm not trying to say God of War 3. I still am playing Kerbal Space Program, if anybody can believe that. I have over 900 hours logged. Way too many hours. Oh. But I'm getting very excited for the second version of Kerbal to come out. That game is very fun, speaks to me. Build spaceships, blow them up, keep trying again. Recently, I've picked up the game High on Life, done by the guys who did the Rick and Morty show, Squanch Games. It's funny. Cool. It's very much a mature audience, but I find it funny. Recently, also, I've rekindled my interest back into 7 Days to Die. It's a little zombie game on Steam. It's pretty fun. I play that with a lot of friends also on the side. That's current right now. It's ever changing every few weeks.
Right. So, and yeah, over the years, games has become not just a thing that you play just for yourself. It's also a way of socializing and hanging out with people.
Yeah, that's very big out there in the multiplayer games out there. It's just a way to reconnect also and just have fun and do the things you love to do together. I have friends that still live in California that I hop online and we play all the time. I have a friend in the East Coast. I have a friend in Montreal. We try to play when we can. And it's our way to connect also. And it's also our break time for each other. It's the same thing as hanging out as kids, but just digital.
Does it ever steer in towards competition at all for you?
I'm not a competitive gamer. Right. There is a realm, a world for competitive gaming. I am fully supportive. And the fact that they're now offered at colleges for competitive gaming scholarships, I was like, okay, really? That's interesting. Wow. Yeah, that was new for me to hear. And I was like, that's a thing.
Wow, you can actually study, do a degree in competitive game, like playing games to win. I can have the philosophy of it.
For it now too.
Wow.
That was quite amusing for me to learn, and more power to it too. I mean, it is fun to watch. I humiliated myself several years ago trying to play Fortnite, and I got owned by a 12-year-old.
So did I. Instantly. I don't think I even touched my feet on the ground.
So it's not for me personally. I'm more of a slow time. I'm going to play it nice and easy. I just want to have fun and
right,
take it at my own pace, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that one. Somebody's asking, they're trying to jump from film visual effects to game visual effects. What would be the best type of content to show when you do not have AAA game experience? I'm guessing for like a show reel or something,
Okay.
or a portfolio, whatever you guys receive as applications.
Short is key, at least from a few that I remember that came to some of those events in the past. Like, you don't want to come in with a half an hour reel. I mean, I would say
No.
that's a bit excessive. I remember one particular student that then, went to our VFX, I think he's now director of VFX. Oh Jesus, sorry, sorry, Mike. He looked it over very quickly, and he was looking for someone who can specialize in like fires and smokes and things like that. And the person came in with like short 1 minute clips, boom, 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 and had like 10 of them lined up. At most, I think they even fast forward some of them, so they finished it fairly quick and showing in like less than 5 minutes. And that was quite impressive. But then at that point, she hooked him. He went back and he started reviewing these videos, and he's like, "Wow, how did you do that? Okay, how did you?" And he started asking the questions more and more. Um, so I hope that answered that question. But yeah, I mean, if you can show short, either it's a video playthrough of it, or if
Say
there
the
is,
person, if they don't have any games experience and they're just showing something that they did in film, is there a sort of, I don't know, any tips for that type of person? Maybe they don't have any games
more
experience, so they're just
yeah,
showing
sorry.
like a feature effect or something like that.
I'm not yeah.
Does it help? Does it help to show that, I guess, or is it better to like try and teach yourself something in games and then
I mean, there's a
an
lot of
engine and
visual effects
show that?
programs or plugins also offer for some engines out there. I guess I don't know what the film industry uses for VFX. I apologize.
Houdini
Oh,
mainly,
Houdini. Okay, so
that type of thing, which you
yeah,
also gets used in games industry too.
I'm sorry.
That gets used in the games industry too. So
Yeah.
that's maybe
Okay,
fair if
Houdini.
somebody's
Houdini.
good.
I'm familiar with the name. Yeah, I think the best way, if you are familiar with Houdini or are able to get a work in Houdini and you want to show that ability, I'm pretty sure, yeah, you can show short little video clips of the thing, whether it be like a fire effect or things like that. That kind of visual effect, if I'm understanding the game VFX from film VFX. So
Yeah, I guess they're probably curious because they're going to have a show reel with like a bunch of clips
yeah,
from
keep it
the
short. I would
Avengers
say just keep it
movie.
short. Don't have it
Is
too
it
long.
is it relevant to show something that's been shown in it, that's a movie,
It
like 10 seconds of a movie for getting a job in a
No,
game?
yeah, okay.
Or
Now that I think about that, I thought about yeah. Sorry, thinking about that a little bit more. If you can do it in a game engine, that's gonna be better, and
right,
some sort of quick. If you either have a way to grab a quick little demo thing. I know there's a lot offered free out there, whether it be like an in-game character just walking, and then you can add your visual effects to that. If you could do it in game and not because you're trying to get in the game industry, I wouldn't necessarily show something from a movie that you've done.
right.
So
I think that's the
I would focus and develop something within a game engine, even though the game engines now are used in films now too.
yeah. No, it's all very Inception these days.
Yeah, it's crazy. Mandalorian. I have a good buddy that worked there, and I believe he was like the director of the sets that were built in Unreal. Great guy. His name is Ian. Really fun guy. But yeah, that's all done in Unreal now, which is crazy to me.
Yeah,
But I hope that answered that question. Like, try to build something in an engine.
get it in the
Get,
engine.
if you can get
Basically,
like a
is
little
the
game
answer.
demo, I know there's a lot of them free out there. Like if you use Unreal, you can get like short little ones that are just free to play, and then you can just add your thing to it. Just build it, show a short little video clip of it.
Yeah,
That'd be better than showing something in film.
that definitely answers the question. Yeah. Got a couple more. I know we've gone a minute over, but a couple, if we can just wrap the Q&A, that would be great. Because we've got some getting more questions at the end here. They're coming in. So that was that one. Somebody saying, can you share your biggest challenge so far? Have you ever reached a point in the industry where you thought of giving up? Interesting question.
That's an interesting question. I haven't gotten that. I guess you could say to that point of wanting to give up the game industry yet, and I don't think I ever will. It's truly like a passion of mine. The fact that I'm able to create those experiences for people to enjoy, millions of people to enjoy, is my driving force of what gets me excited every day. So I can't say I've ever got to that point of like wanting to give up.
Maybe the first half of the question, then we've reached. What was your biggest challenge? What's your biggest
So
challenge so far?
one of my biggest challenges was me transitioning to a senior technical design role, but in the sense in tandem with using some tech that we worked really hard to do what we wanted to do. And I can't give details on that. Sorry if that sounds vague, but
Oh, it's
developing
okay.
these
Get it
systems,
all the time.
developing these systems to, I don't want to say they're breaking points now, to like really push them and be able to give us what we want at the end to help like some of the things that we developed for Marvel's Avengers. There was a lot of great challenges there, and they were challenging. They were very challenging to develop some of the tech that we worked on and used for that. Some of the systems we used for the in-game multiplayer stuff. A lot of those were very challenging, and probably the most challenging in my career. Um, but yeah, in the end, it worked out, and we got through, and we developed and delivered a great game, and yeah.
Those biggest challenges at the time they can feel like the hardest, but you often look back on them as your fondest experiences because they're the things that pushed you to be your best and made you grow, and you kind of thankful to them afterwards.
Absolutely. I mean, it's those challenges I really feel that also shape you in your career field. Like if you get through that challenge, now you just one upped yourself in the sense of like now you have that knowledge. You now can help avoid either struggles that may have happened previously or may have not happened, but you can help like provide that knowledge and growth that you've done and what you've learned from it to other future experiences in game development. So it really is it's really challenges are great. Challenges ultimately that's what I'm trying to say ultimately. Challenges are great to have. Struggles are wonderful to have. You have to struggle a little bit to get through it to realize that that was the fight that was worth fighting for. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of challenges out there, and there always will be actually too, because it's constantly evolving. So there's always gonna be a new challenge. I think it's the truly for me, I yearn for that challenge every time. Something new, something exploratory, something that hasn't been done yet. It's exploration. True explorers, right? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've kind of been everywhere on the surface of the earth, but we haven't been everywhere in terms of concepts and things that we can invent. That's the new frontier, I guess.
mhm.
Someone's asking, do you treat each new game or concept with a formula as far as the approach to creating that new game?
um, if it's something that is closely related to something previous, it's kind of nice to know I can take some of that knowledge that was like either patterns that I've used before or techniques that I've used that I can just use again if it's a similar genre or style of game. Um, yeah, I'll bring some of that knowledge over. It's always good to take the knowledge that you know and you learned to apply to the next one if you can. Different genre, you can still use aspects of what you learned on previous games. So if it's now an entirely different genre style, multiplayer or not multiplayer, if it's something entirely different of a game than what you just previously worked on, you can still apply what you have learned um, from that. I mean, a very simple but very critical one is like, I mean, how did you time manage yourself on a specific thing that you had to build, deliver, and get done? And now you at least have that knowledge of, okay, I know even though we're doing something a little bit different, I at least can kind of time manage myself, and then I can apply that in the next game that I'm working on to then help be better at that thing. An example would be like an artist. An artist generally knows what an asset is going to take to build, map, and then deliver. So they can at least have an idea how long something will take on the next thing. An engineer generally kind of knows how if they got to build a certain function, they know they want to do something similar in the next game. Well, they could probably apply some of that knowledge to the next one, and then whether again it's for a different game or not, if it's for design, um, design can be a little different. I mean, it depends on the game. If you're open world, if you're not open world, I mean, you're gonna be designing your levels out differently now. So that you can take at least some aspect with you. Some maybe not. It just depends on that style. So LDs, they're very adaptive. I mean, I came from LD, so we're always having to make new and exciting levels. So it's kind of a half and half. You can take some with you depending on the game. Sometimes if it's a similar game, like Tomb Raider was for Tomb Raider and then Rise, we pushed boundaries in Rise. We did more things, but we still had that core knowledge of what we learned in the previous Tomb Raider, and we were able to carry that over and then expand upon. It was a very wonderful experience to be able to just grow upon something that was already built. So versus like going from a Tomb Raider then to a multiplayer game like Avengers, there was a lot of learning there, but it was great. I mean, it truly was a very good learning period. I mean, for me personally, working on, I think that was actually my first multiplayer game. So that was different for me, and it was great though. The things I learned now can be applied going forward on any future multiplayer games I decide to work on. So I hope that answers that question. Yeah,
Cool.
there's some things you could bring, and depending on the game, maybe some things you can't, but the knowledge is always there still.
Yeah, good answer. I'm just trying to see if we've got any more that I didn't cover, but I think I got them. So, what are you excited about in the future of what you do?
I am very, very, very excited with currently, of course, what I'm working on. I'm a huge fanboy. I won't say names or anything. I'm going to be that cautious and paranoid, but I'm pretty sure you can Google search it, as someone did earlier. Huge fan of that genre.
I did as well. I looked up the thing you can't talk about.
Huge fan of it. Very, very respect. I have a lot of respect for that game. Aside from that, though, I mean, a lot of things on the side. I just picked up Callisto Protocol. Actually, that's a game I need to actually start playing. I downloaded it too. I'm looking forward to that game. I want to play it. I like that aspect of they really are delivering horror style movie stuff in games. That to really nail that is quite. It's a game I'm probably going to study because honestly, I find more of it very interesting that they're able to do a horror style in a game, and really it makes me jump sometimes a little bit already. Like the video clips I've seen already, I was like, oh Jesus, okay. And my wife has already played it. She's a huge gamer. She's already popped through, and I've heard her scream bloody murder in the other room. I'm like, what the heck is going on? It's the game. So looking forward to Kerbal Space Program 2. Big fan of that game. I do a lot of Steam games, if I haven't made that also clear.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine recently got me the expansion for The Long Dark. I like survival games. Survival games are really fun to kill some time on the weekend. Definitely looking forward to that in the future. When I get time to play it, of course.
I've now thought of another question right at the end, or even past the end. I'm curious. You've mentioned very briefly earlier, but we're now in this time where I know that games have for a long time been made based off movie franchises. Games and film have influenced each other a lot over the years, but we're now in this time where, as you said, films are being made in game engines, and game films are now being made. Like, there's people out there. We had Has the Law on the podcast recently. He's making a movie in a game engine, making the game with the same assets in the same engine, and also making a metaverse experience based on the same things. So three formats in one with the same assets. I said when we got onto Lion King, my first question was, can't we do something else with this? Like, we built the whole 160 square kilometers of Africa in there, the whole Lion King world in a game engine that's never going to be seen by anyone. Can't even show it on my show reel. But so we got this huge amount of crossover happening now. People are actually making the same things with the same assets now, which is kind of the first time that's been done, really.
Oh, wow.
What are your thoughts on? And there's huge amounts of story coming into games now. That games are basically playable films effectively in some way now. What are your thoughts on how those two worlds are kind of colliding, and are you seeing people going in both directions, or seeing film people come into games, or games people going across to films? That's about 14 questions in one, but how about it?
I can hit the last one fairly easy. Yeah, I see a lot of film people actually in the game industry a lot. I worked with a bunch of animators that previously came from like Pixar and DreamWorks, and now they're animating for games. I mean, I see that cross a lot happen. I see like movie directors, or not per se directors, but what they trying to remember his specific role of an individual. He was in the film industry, but he came over as a director on one of our projects, and I do see that cross happening a lot, and it won't ever stop. I don't think. I think games will always inspire movies, and movies will always inspire games. Reading inspires both. Big sci-fi reader, yeah. So I get some individual inspiration from books that I've read. Most recently finished the Bobaverse. If anybody hasn't read Bobaverse, it's a great series. It's 3 books. I mean, my love for survival games came prior, but was ignited heavily when I saw Mission to Mars, and before not Mission Mars, sorry, The Martian. And before that, I read the Martian books. I was like, oh, this would be a really cool game. And then I started researching survival games, and I got really big into survival games. They're, I mean, that's directly like an influence from reading to movie to game. Going forward in the future, I see still both fields of movie and games still inspiring each other to come up with new ideas. And it is wonderful to see some things come out there from game now to movies. Like the most recent one coming out, I think it's the 15th, The Last of Us, is turning into a HBO series, and that game it still pulls some heartstrings. I mean, the opening scene was the hardest thing to watch in a game for me, and to see that go into a movie or a franchise, sorry, a TV series, I was kind of like, wow. And they casted well. Tom Holland, when he did Nathan Drake, I enjoyed that movie. It was a fun, quirky movie. And he tried to speak on Nathan Drake, the character in the video game, and to see that on the screen, I was like, okay. And they did it as like a prequel to the first game, and I was like, okay, you didn't step on any bounds there. I'm impressed. Okay. It was kind of nice to see that. It
was all storytelling. Basically, you kind of hit the nail on the head in the middle by saying you like books, and essentially that's where both come from. They both come from somebody creating a world and a story and an idea and characters, and then you make a game like Tomb Raider and it turns into a movie. You make Lord of the Rings and it turns into a movie and then a game and then a movie again.
Yeah. If you could be in a room with me and the wonderful narrative designers that I've worked with in the past, and the narrative director that I worked with in the past, when you hear them talk about the story of the game that you're working on, and shout out to John Stafford and Nicole and Hannah, and some of the best people I've ever worked with narrative and Mark. It's like they're building a movie in front of your eyes in a way. The way they're talking to you about it, you're like, oh my goodness. Oh yeah, now you need to help us convey that in the game. Like, I don't want to disappoint you. And storytelling.
Let's talk about limitations.
Yeah, right. Storytelling is so key in some great games. Every game is a story in some sense. It could be very simple, or it could be very complicated and have a lot of interesting points of discussion. Character development, things like that. So that very well does shape games too. I mean, complicated stories. I think. I mean,
some things may suit games more than a film. Like sometimes now, I think now we're seeing that with linear content as well, with some things coming out as TV series instead of a movie, because there's so much depth to it that the movie is too short. They can't fit it all in, and people make giant movies they have to cut down to 2 hours, but instead now maybe they don't, because now people are binge watching on Netflix. They can make long form out of series. And in a game, I guess you can explore an idea. I guess you ultimately have a budget too. You've got some constraints, but some things maybe suit one format more than the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anywhere that people can follow you? Anything that you'd like to share in terms of links or things that you'd like people to discover about you?
No, I mean, anybody can find me on LinkedIn. I will always help in any way I can with anybody, whoever is curious about both getting in the industry, questions about the industry. Obviously, disclaimer: not everything can be discussed of what is current and within the studio without, of course, sanction from studio leadership and HR. But I mean, in terms of just generalized questions about the industry and like techniques, what to study, what not to study, what to do, what not to do. Yeah, I'm always willing to help anybody who wants to try to get into that. It was, I mean, it was difficult to some extent for me in some areas, but I had the support from other people who already had the experience in the industry, that were willing to extend that hand and just, hey, maybe try this, maybe try that. So yeah, anybody can find me on LinkedIn. I don't do personally, I don't do a lot of social media, like Facebook and stuff like that. I'm almost a ghost on Facebook. That's a personal choice. I keep LinkedIn purely for professional. That's one tip I could give to anybody. I personally, I mean, that's just me personally. I don't ever really post anything. I would say that my tip of advice for anybody is if you ever comment on anything, just know that someone's always looking at it. So
It lives forever.
Yeah, it lives forever in a sense, and it's always good to, if you got the old-fashioned saying, if you got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Good advice. Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing so much in this podcast, and also offering to extend that to people as well. Appreciate that. We're a strong community at CG Pro, and we what we're founded on really is helping each other. And I appreciate you coming in and being a guest in our class as well in February. If anyone's interested in that, we will share links, or if we have not been doing so already. But I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Ryan. Also, thank you very much to our audience. Thanks everybody for joining us and asking questions and engaging. And we will be back in another couple of weeks. So
thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for being here. We'll see you all in a couple of weeks, everybody. Take care. Good night.